Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project copyrighted edition for a video channel, and this is a Skinwalker review edition, and this is for the last week of June 2022. And Skinwalker Ranch has been up and down for me this year. The segments that don't have Travis have kind of lagged in my view. Not that the guys haven't been doing a good job, but it kind of lagged. Now, let's talk about this show from last night. They highlighted the caretaker back from the hospital. He said he was able to catch his breath after he got off the ranch, and he now wears a heart monitor, which I think is interesting. Now, if you have a heart that isn't acting right, sometimes they put a pacemaker on it. And we have to keep following him to see what happens. I hope his health improves. Tom and Roland almost blacked out at Homestead 2. Homestead 2 keeps coming up in past shows and in George Knapp and Colm Kelleher's book, Skinwalker Ranch. It's been a point of contention over the years where there's been odd things that have happened. Now, why is that? Well, they've got the triangle, they've got Homestead 2, they've got the cave, they've got a lot of things going on. But something about Homestead 2. Cave covered by boulders, cave made by boulders. That's my question. Was the cave there not really a cave, but it's a series of boulders that made it look like a cave? I don't know, I'm not there, and they haven't really clarified that. Now, the flakes of metal that fell into the screener, wasn't too jazzed about that until they went to the University of Utah and interviewed the PhD, saying he thought it was manufactured. The components are so unusual that it doesn't seem that in the middle of Utah in a desert that these things should be coming up. So that has caught my attention, and I find that intriguing at this point. Now, Travis made a statement, a 400-foot long object. They drilled in 400 feet. They have no idea if they hit a rock. I've never heard this statement about a 400-foot long object. I wonder if he misstated that. Not sure. Okay, the camera in the crawler that fails. The camera wouldn't penetrate the side of the mountain. Well, that's not that unusual. I don't find that. Round boulder supposedly covered the hole. In about this area of the show, I kind of thought that they were using a lot of filler. And I have to tell you something, that in documentary filmmaking, I've made Missing 411, Missing 411, The Hunted. If I put filler in there, the span of a normal audience is about that fast. They'd be gone, they'd dump the show, they'd move on. In a series like this, you get to know the players and you get to give them a little room to do what they want to do, and you forgive them a lot more because you know their personalities and you kind of feel attached to them. Series is different. So I recognize when they're doing this. Unimportant filler. And I thought it carried on a little bit too long in this show. I might be being overly critical, just my own opinion. I wish they hadn't done it. I wish they hadn't focused so much on this round rock. The scanning electron analysis from the University of Utah and what they found, I think that kind of made the substance of this show. And then when Travis was talking about it might bend space-time, multiple layers of this material, that was fascinating. Where was it manufactured and why was it manufactured are the questions. He said the University of Utah professional said that the samples were fused Magnesium and aluminum were a surprise. And then they compared it to ceramic oxides used in the space shuttle. Right at the end of the show, there was a rumble in the earth that kind of caught everyone by surprise, I think. What's going on there? Not sure. Now, really, the best part of that show is when they teased for next week. Using the lasers is something I said that they should be doing up in that triangle. See what these really strong lasers are doing. But I would probably do one more thing. I probably would have hung a balloon up there simultaneously to see what it did to the balloon. Now, one thing they haven't done much in this series is talk about the hitchhiker effect. And that is that the guys and the ladies that have gone to the ranch go home and their family is almost infected by paranormal entities that harass them, and worse. When I spoke to George Knapp about a week and a half ago about this, and I asked him to clarify why the people who have worked at the ranch in the past are unwilling to go back, he said it's about this specifically, and their health. Their health, as I'm going to refer to a report that was written by Colm Kelleher. Now, when George and Colm wrote the first book about the ranch, they talked about this briefly. But things have come out lately that are very troubling. So, the newest book that Kelleher and Knapp wrote, which I highly recommend, is called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Now, Kelleher wrote a magazine article about this in Edge of Science magazine, June of 2022. The Pentagon's secret UFO program, the hitchhiker effect, and models of contagion. This is going to help you truly understand what's going on at the ranch and how it got to this place that we're at today. It said in September 2008, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, initiated a $22 million two-year contract with Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Studies, BASS, to scientifically study UFOs and their effects on humans. And so began one of the most controversial programs in the history of the U.S. government. The program was named Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program, AAWSAP, and was kept secret from the public until the New York Times broke the story in December 2017. Leslie Kean was one of those authors. DIA senior analyst James T. Lakatsky was the primary creator of AAWSAP. Within 5 months of the program's starting date in 2008, a team of 50 PhD and master's level scientists, technicians, engineers, analysts, military intelligence professionals, program managers, and security officers had been recruited, hired, and were being assigned security clearances. During the program's 24-month duration, plus a 3-month no-cost extension, BASS delivered over 100 technical reports on different aspects of the UFO performance, as well as reports describing medical, psychological, and physiological effects of UFOs and associated phenomena. Here's the key point: physiological. Psychological, obviously, we could all be affected by seeing a UFO in our bedroom. But physiological, and that is the key that caught me on this. One of the investigations initiated by AAWSAP involved the infamous Skinwalker Ranch. The DIA deployed several military personnel on site visits to Skinwalker Ranch to corroborate and evaluate earlier reports of phenomena. Lakatsky himself had experienced a profound anomaly on the ranch in 2007. This experience, in fact, was a significant information instigation for the formation of the program. All 5 DIA personnel deployed at the ranch experienced profound anomalies while on the property, and more importantly, all 5 brought something home with them. The leader of these 5 military personnel was a naval intelligence officer who we gave the pseudonym Jonathan Axelrod in our book. Axelrod was an accomplished engineer who would eventually be promoted to the rank of a two-star general, correct that, two-star admiral within naval intelligence, who possessed top-secret, sensitive, compartmented information clearances at the time of the ranch visit in 2009. Axelrod, accompanied by Jim Costigan and David Wilson, encountered an anomaly on the ranch that caused a lot of fear in the three men. But little did he know that the incident was only the beginning of his troubles. Within a month of arriving back home in Virginia, paranormal phenomena erupted in his Axelrod home. Now, the issues with this wasn't that the phenomena was going after the people doing the research. They went after people periphery in that individual's life. Now, they've shown that this entity can read your mind and predict what you're going to do. If that is the case, then did this entity understand what the people had at home, or did they hitchhike, hang on to them, and go to their home? That's a question. For several years following his 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, Axelrod's wife and teenage children were subjected to nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard, to blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating. People standing over their beds when they were awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps walking up and down their stairs. One of the family's high schoolers had a friend in 2011 who told him that on one night a wolf-like creature was standing out of the bedroom window of Axelrod's kid's friend. So it went from the scientist to the family to the kids to a friend. The experiences by the friend suggest that the perception of this bizarre creature in blue orbs was transferable beyond the family home. That's important. Why would it transfer to a friend of a child? Think about that. The family was also suffered health effects from the wife suffering flare-ups of systematic lupus and Raynaud's disease. Both Axelrod's teenagers also endured intense flu-like symptoms at different times. What was once a normal middle-class home in suburban Virginia became an inferno of unexplained phenomena, and the Axelrod family were certain that the trigger of his transformation was his first trip to Skinwalker Ranch. Health effects. The Axelrods were far from alone during the AAWSAP program. Each ranch owner and Bass founder Robert Bigelow reported numerous anomalies and unusual activity in his home in the months and years after visiting the ranch. Investigations at the ranch, some lasting overnight, subsequent trips to the ranch. Knapp reported that his wife experienced multiple apparitions in their home, including sightings of blue orbs outside the window of their home in Las Vegas. Jim Costigan, a Marine who had accompanied Axelrod on his first visit to the ranch, and his wife experienced a very close encounter with a blue orb in their quiet Maryland neighborhood in September 2009. His upper arm was briefly grazed by a low-flying blue orb as it flew past her and disappeared into the neighborhood. Almost immediately, she became ill and experienced a constellation of unusual symptoms, being eventually diagnosed as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease in which the immune system attacks the thyroid gland. That is troubling, folks. What's the point in attacking the children? Could it be that this entity knows that attacking the researcher won't stop the research, but maybe attacking a family member, a wife, or a child will make them think, well, our family's too important, I won't do this anymore. Just thinking out loud. Other people also became infected and experienced autoimmune disease in one or more family members. These autoimmune diseases included Graves' disease, Sjogren's syndrome, Hashimoto thyroiditis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, blood dyscrasias, Connective tissue and dermatological abnormalities, including those of systematic sclerosis, were all diagnosed in a group of experiencers. It's important to note that all the medical diagnoses were made by at least 3 MDs, and all brain scans and other clinical findings were reviewed independently by more than one board-certified specialist, physician. Remember, on the ranch, in this program, one of the researchers there had to go to the hospital because his brain started to enlarge. Thomas Witherton. That's serious stuff. This is Kelleher speaking. Knapp and I have separately interviewed more than 10 security officers who have spent 2-week tours on duty at the ranch. And they had confirmed that they brought home a paranormal connection or infection from the Skinwalker with them. Lekatsky himself and his wife experienced a few, but not many, anomalies in their home in the years following his Skinwalker Ranch experience. The feeling of bringing something home and the subsequent person-to-person transmissibility of the paranormal phenomena, some of which can last for years, has been named as the hitchhiker effect. In a April 2022 interview, Skinwalker research team member Jim Sagala addressed the phenomena. Over the past 5 years, it has been our experience that when people interact with the phenomena and do not treat the phenomena with respect, that's when we see a higher rate of hitchhiker syndrome. Symptoms experienced by people range from acute neurological injuries to chronic blood disease. Did you catch that? If you treat it disrespectfully, you have a higher incidence of it bothering you. One thing I've always done is I try to treat these anomalies in our world with respect. I think that that's the way you start with everything. Now, I don't like the idea 1 ounce that these entities decided to attack family members and children because they have no relationship to the research. That's bothersome. But that is a way to get at the researcher to possibly keep them away. The hitchhiker effect is not unique to Skinwalker Ranch. The AAWSAP research team found that even close encounters with UFOs in locations unrelated to the ranch produce a version of the effect. This was not always the case, but did occur especially when the experiencer were followed or regularly interviewed by the team over long periods of time. Poltergeist and Contagion. Kelleher specialty is bio-related issues, and he tries to draw a correlation between contagions in our atmosphere and this hitchhiker effect, the way it can be passed from one to another. And he also he wrote about in 1973 when noted illusionist and psychokinetic practitioner Uri Geller was undergoing a series of tests of his psychic ability at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. A series of bizarre events began to unfold both in the lab itself and at the homes of scientists who were conducting the study. As with the ranch visitors, many of the researchers involved had the highest level of security clearances. They talked about people associated with the research had very odd things happen at their home. They'd be at a laboratory together setting up some experiment, or one of the fellows and his wife and the children would be at home just sitting around when suddenly there in the middle of the room there would be a weird hovering, almost comically stereotypical image of a flying saucer. There were some interesting overlaps between the events at Livermore Lab in 1973 and those that occurred at Axelrod's residence in the homes of Skinwalker Ranch some 37 years later. In both, the central victims were individuals with highest level clearances and were working in senior positions levels in the government. In both, the initial psychic trigger, Uri Geller, or at the ranch, plunged multiple people and their families into another world where high strangeness events unfolded. In both, balls of lights were presented unexpectedly to family members. In both, bizarre, atypical, mythological animals and birds manifested. In both, poltergeist-like phenomena affected the families. In both, the experiences appeared to be centered near bedrooms, hallways, and backyards of the humans involved. In both, black rectangles or black cubes were involved. Intriguingly, physicist Hal Puthoff was a central player in both Lawrence Livermore and the ranch. Utilizing the infectious disease model, Axelrod was the index case for the first infected at the ranch and carried the infectious agent 2,000 miles to Virginia with him. Within a few days or weeks, the agent had spread from Axelrod to his wife and both his teenage sons, and all three began experiencing a bewildering diversity of anomalies in their home. Within a few more weeks, the infectious agent had spread to a neighborhood and infected two teenage kids, probably at school, who lived within a couple miles of their home. It should be noted that the symptoms of the infection from Skinwalker Ranch are not respiratory distress or death, as with COVID-19, but rather profoundly altered perpetual environments. So the question comes up. He brought up this association with an infectious disease model. Is it something, did the entity attach itself in a physical way inside the body so that the scientist, when he was around people, could cause them to catch the hitchhiker? I don't think so. Here's why. They only talked about family members and their direct friends who caught this, or where the hitchhiker went. If it was truly contagious, then people in the neighborhood, other relatives, other friends would catch this. But that wasn't the case. That's the reason I think it's more of a brain attachment. It's understanding your brain thoughts and theories and what's important to you, the researcher. And because that was important to the researcher, they attached themselves to the most important part of their life, to annoy them, to scare them. Now, in talking to George Knapp, he said something that maybe wasn't completely honest in this art, or completely transparent in the article, and that is that each of these entities, specifically the common denominator, was the wife, the woman. Why? Why would it go after the wife or the woman? The question comes back, why not just go after the researcher and make them sick? Make them disabled? That would permanently take them away. But they cause serious medical issues with females of these researchers. Now, if that was me, I guarantee I would not be going back to that ranch, because the female in my life is way too important to allow something like that to happen. That would keep me away. And Kelleher is far too good of a scientist to make me question what he just presented. I totally believe it. Which tells me, remember a couple of reviews ago, I said, well, could these people at the ranch be getting some type of disease that maybe doesn't manifest itself physically now, but maybe later? What is scary is the autoimmune diseases that these people are catching from the hitchhikers. That's a very sobering thought. Very. Now, when Thomas Witherton had the brain enlargement at the ranch, it happened while he was there. Now, he was driving a tractor 2 episodes ago, and they were starting to dig up some land on the triangle. and the tractor shut down, even though it had 2 new batteries. An effect very similar to UFO abduction victims and their vehicles that they were in. But you notice they haven't started back up with that tractor, and they haven't completely explained why. But I haven't seen the tractor there, so I'm not sure what's going on. Now, we've talked about keep prodding the bear to see if they're going to get a reaction. What type of reaction are they looking for? Right at the last couple minutes of this last episode, there was a big earth-shaking event. That's pretty in your face. And the caretaker had to go to the hospital because of heart issues. It's a pretty serious event. So, is the entity sitting back thinking, well, I've given these people enough warnings about to stay away and leave this property alone, but they keep doing it? What's the next step? Is the next step to go after Travis at a higher level? Remember, he stated that while he's been at the ranch, he's had nightmares. He's had things hit the side of his trailer where he was sleeping. Now, what's interesting about all this? I went to lunch a couple days ago with Joe Hauser. Joe owns the Montana Vortex. Joe and I are really good friends. We talk all the time. And I know his wife Tammy really well. And I've known him for a couple years. And they've told us about, in the middle of the night, something hits the side of their home and wakes them up. And there's been mud and things outside that window, and there's never any tracks. Now, Tammy told me that at one point, hey, she said, please don't pound like that. Please just knock. It wakes us up and it scares us. And so whatever is doing this started knocking. It's pretty unusual. Now, the other part of that is that Joe, my door's going to close here in a second. Boom, wind. Joe and I have talked about the females of the researchers being attached to somehow. And we talked in theoretical terms why that may be occurring. And what Joe was saying is that in his, I don't know, decade-long stint that he's at the ranch, he's never experienced anything from the entities there that have caused him issues. And as I've told you before, I've had many people go to the Vortex, and Joe has showed them on his phone the cameras, what they pick up at the mystery spot. Don't care if you guys believe me, but I know what's going on there is true. And it's somehow related to what's going on at the ranch. I know it. What happens at the ranch has happened at the Vortex over time in a different way. Do I feel scared at the ranch? I mean, scared at the Vortex? No. Never been scared. In fact, I've gone to the ranch, prayed before, or I've gone to the Vortex and prayed before, trying to make a spiritual connection, and I think I have. But the similarities are obvious to the people who have done the work at the Vortex and understand the ranch. So anyhow, that was a pretty long-winded review of the segment and some background information on hitchhikers that I hope you liked. I find it fascinating. I'm slowly coming to the realization I probably don't want to go to the ranch because I don't want to suscept my friends and loved ones to hitchhikers. I like waking up in the middle of the night and looking at the end of my bed and not seeing anyone there. So anyhow, please pass this along, post this on your social media, let people know what we're doing here. If you like the segment, give me a thumbs up. There's going to be links to my books at the bottom of this. And watch Missing 411, The Hunted, and Missing 411, our first documentary. Remember, in The Hunted, we use special effects to show some type of long tube-like UFO fly through the ranch. I'm sorry, the campsite where we filmed that. And it's a pretty interesting phenomena that was happening there. In the meantime, enjoy your summer. Be good to your friends. Do something special, anything special for somebody today. It'll make you feel better. Paulides out.